Good evening. Today's conference topic is racism in the modern world, and I would like to look at an intersectional aspect of that debate where race meets sexual orientation. This intersectionality I'm going to look at through the prism of the life of a black footballer called Justin Fashanu. You may have heard of him, but let me give you a little potted history about his life. He was born in London in 1961 to a Nigerian father and a Guyanese mother. He showed promise in boxing, but went on to become a famous English footballer. Now, he was known to be a gay football player by the football clubs that he played for. He came out publicly as the first professional footballer to come out through an interview with some of the tabloid newspapers, namely The Sun, but he also gave an interview with a gay lifestyle magazine called Gay Times. Now, not only was he the first professional footballer to come out in England, he was also the first black professional footballer to be transferred for £1 million from one club to another. He transferred from Norwich City to Nottingham Forest, so he was hugely well known, hugely high status in the newspapers all the time. So when he came out as a gay man and as a black gay man, he provoked a strong reaction. And sadly this led to a deterioration with the relationship with his brother Justin Fashanu, and also a deterioration with one of his football managers called Clough, famous football manager, you may have heard of him. And actually it led to Justin Fashanu facing lots of abuse and rejections from clubs. Clough, that trainer, barred him from training with the football team. And I want to give you a little snapshot of one of the interactions that Justin Fashanu had with Clough. Clough took Justin Fashanu aside and said to him, Justin, if you want to buy a loaf of bread, where do you go? Justin said, the baker's. Brian said, if you want to buy a leg of lamb, where do you go? Justin said, the butcher's. And then Brian turned on Justin and said, so why then do you keep going to those bloody poofs clubs? It shows the kinds of attitudes that Justin had to face in his professional setting. Eventually, Justin Fashanu moved to the United States in 1998. But things went worse for him there. In the state of Maryland, where at the time homosexual acts were illegal, Justin Fashanu was questioned by police and accused of sexual assault by a 17-year-old boy. The police went to charge him and they had a warrant for his arrest. Justin fled the States back to the UK, where he committed suicide and he was found hanged. He left a suicide note saying that he feared that he wouldn't have a fair trial because of his homosexuality. And in the suicide note he claimed that the sex between him and the 17-year-old boy was consensual. No doubt he was fearing about homophobic prejudice, but I suspect also that he was up against racist prejudice in the world of the 1980s and 1990s. So it's kind of left me thinking how sad the story is, and what might have been had attitudes been different and had the climate been different. He was clearly a very talented footballer and showed great promise. So much so that subsequently Justin Fashanu has been voted as number 99 as one of the top 500 lesbian and gay heroes, according to the Pink Paper. And also, all is not lost, in the sense that after his tragic death, there is some legacy that he's left in the Justin Fashanu Foundation. This is a sports foundation which aims to tackle racism, homophobia and mental health problems in football. Justin Fashanu was also elected to the National Football Museum of Fame. So it's in our recent history. He's a figure you may have heard of. If you want to find out more about Justin Fashanu, there is a film on Netflix called The Forbidden Games, the Justin Fashanu story. So I think it's important today in our debate and discussions on racial identities and sexual orientation identities to remember the figure of Justin Fashanu. Thank you very much for listening.